Good evening and welcome to the WDSU News Hot Seat. I'm Travis Mackle. 7 city council seats are up for grabs this fall. 4 incumbents are seeking re-election. 3 seats are open. Tonight, we're kicking off what will be 7 straight weeks of candidate forums for those city council seats. We're beginning with City Council District A. That seat is being vacated by Susan Guidry, a Democrat first elected in 2010. She's barred by term limits from seeking re-election. District A runs from the 17th Street Canal at the Parish Line to City Park and into Gentilly at Columbia Park. District A includes all of Lakeview, parts of Mid-City, Gertown, and parts of Uptown near the University area. 6 candidates have qualified to run. All are Democrats, and all are here tonight. They are Eileen Achikalan McLansky, Joe Giarrusso III, Tillman Hardy, Dan Ring, Drew Ward, and Toya Washington Kendrick. First off, thank you all for being here. And let's just get right to the questions. Crime is on the rise in the city. All of you have a chance to answer a question on this topic. Let's begin with Miss Achikalan McLansky. We're starting with you, and once again, we are going alphabetically. What needs to be done to lower the crime rate in District A? You have 1 minute.
Thank you, Travers, for having us here. I think that we really can't police our way out of crime, and what we need to do is continue to bolster our police force, focus on recruitment, but at the same time, we need to put a focus on investing in our families and the youth. We have 43% of children are living in poverty, and we need to be able to offer them services and wraparound services that will take them from birth to age 18. And you can do that through investing in enrichment programs, investing in more recreation, and also programs in school that offer mental health benefits.
Mr. Giarrusso, you live in Lakeview. How concerned are you with petty theft, car break-ins, etc.? You have 1 minute to answer that question.
Well, thank you for the question. Car break-ins have been a perennial problem for us in Lakeview and throughout the district as well. I think the answer is sort of 2 or 3-fold. Number one, we do need to have more police. The force right now is about 1,050 people, and it's important to make sure that we have raised those. For example, in the homicide unit, there used to be 30 homicide detectives, and now we're down to just 10 or 13. The national clearance rate on murder is 64%. Here in New Orleans, we're at 18 to 22%. Domestic violence is understaffed as well here. I also think when you talk about police and being proactive, you want to have community policing as well, so neighbors know who their police are. And I also think you need to have economic development to make sure people are having the right jobs. And of course, when we're talking about policing, you want to make sure that you have good pretrial and diversion programs as well, so that you can keep people out of the system who don't need to be there.
Mr. Hardy, if you're elected as a councilman, how will you work to hire and retain more police officers in the NOPD?
I believe that we have sufficient funding to do that. If we eliminate all of the waste that we're spending on things that are not related to policing, specifically community policing, I believe that we will have enough resources and enough officers. In many other municipalities, the number of officers that they have are far less per capita than we have here. And I believe that there are organizations that can fill the gap, like the Peacekeepers, as well as the Ceasefire program. If there were more funding for those programs, which I would highly recommend and I would push for if I am elected, then I believe that they could work together conjunctively to eliminate our violence problem in the city.
All right, thanks a lot, Mr. Hardy. Mr. Ring, do police need to be more visible in District A? And if elected, how do you make that happen?
Yes, I do believe they need to be more visible by community policing, getting them out of the police cars into the neighborhoods. They build a rapport with the neighbors. They also build a rapport with the individual children. So the children's trust and the neighbors' trust are increased by doing that. By working on community policing, we also give more visibility throughout the neighborhoods to people that aren't there to do well. In the Grand Route St. John neighborhood where I live in, there's been a rash of popping locks and various stuff. If we have community policing go on, we have visible people on the streets available there to apprehend and prevent it in the front.
Mr. Ward, let's go to you. The city recently approved a pay raise for police. Is salary hampering recruitment and retention on the NOPD?
Absolutely not. We already pay our police more in New Orleans than almost any city in the region, and we have some of the highest paid police there are. Pay is not a problem, neither is the number of police. We have one police officer for roughly every 300 people in the city, so it's quite high. As other people said, though, visibility is a problem, and we have money being spent to put people into police cars. We don't have a reason to have a police car or take home vehicles for each policeman. 3 shifts a day, 1 police car, let them share. And for every shift that 1 police officer's in a car at a desk, let them spend a shift out walking in the neighborhoods and a shift out riding a bike in the neighborhoods. The fact is that we know people can't see political signs that are too small at 35 miles an hour because they only have a few fractions of a second to see it. So how can we expect our police to actually see the crime going on or get to know the neighborhoods driving through at 35 an hour?
Ms. Washington Kendrick, if you're elected, would you support the current police superintendent, Michael Harrison, or as an elected leader, do you think it's time to turn the page and go in a different direction?
I personally think it's time to turn the page and go in a different direction because so often we are still sticking to the insanity. We're doing the same thing expecting different results. So I really think we should go in a different direction. Next
question. This is really just a yes or no answer. It's been a hot button issue here and around the country. Ms. Achakalin McGlansky, we're going to start with you. Would you have voted for or against the removal of the 4 Confederate monument statues if you were on the council when that vote took place?
I think that listening to the community, yes, I would have voted for it.
How about you, Mr. Giarrusso? Yes or no, would you have voted for the removal of the Confederate monuments?
I just don't think I have enough information to answer that question, and the answer really is about the process that was involved. None of us were on the council at the time this happened, and I think it's important that people are frustrated by what happened in the process and making sure that the process was followed correctly and making sure that there was fundamental fairness.
But could we get a yes or no answer, because that's a decision you may have to make if you're on the council?
Well, I don't know right now, because I think the answer is we have too much uncertainty with what's happened, and you have people who are unsure about what happened, how it's been provoked, and I think it's premature to make decisions about how you would vote on that.
All right, so no yes or no answer?
No.
Okay.
Because I think it's not fair to prejudge at this point.
All right, Mr. Hardy, same question. Would you have voted to remove the 4 Confederate monuments? Yes or no?
Yes, I would have.
All right, Mr. Ring, how about you?
Simply put, yes.
All right, Mr. Ward?
Absolutely. The majority of people in the city said they wanted them removed, and we are representatives of the people, so absolutely.
Ms. Washington Kendrick, what would your answer be? Would you have voted to remove the 4 Confederate monuments?
I would vote to remove them totally.
All right. Next question. Once again, we're starting in alphabetical order here. It deals with flood protection. It's been a hot topic in the city of New Orleans. Ms. Achakalin McGlansky, do you support or condemn the mayor's decision to get rid of several key staffers at the Sewage and Water Board after the August 5th flood and subsequent pump failure? You have 1 minute.
I think that there was a systemic failure in the Sewage and Water Board that was beyond just the employees. I think that the mayor's decision, and also they decided to resign as well, so we're not sure if it's whether they resigned or were asked to resign. But there was a systemic failure because of, partially because of the governance structure. The Sewage and Water Board, all accountability was removed in 2012 when there were reforms done and the city council was removed, and it's a state entity, and the way that there was accountability was having those city council members on the board, and I would support putting the council members back on the board to ensure that the voice of the people has a vote on the Sewage and Water Board.
Mr. Giarrusso, same question. Do you support or condemn the mayor's decision to, in essence, clean house after what happened on August 5th?
Well, I think the problem's been we've seen a cascading series of problems here. At first, and the answer is yes, that I think you needed to have some cleaning of house to make sure that we had faith again in the system that has happened. We know for a fact that what we were initially told wasn't true, and that those circumstances have changed with the pump stations at 6, 7, and 12 that affect affected the Lakeview and Mid-City areas. We know that the vacuum trucks haven't been operating in the way they should. We know that the catch basins weren't being cleaned in the method that they should. We know the turbines weren't being operated. When I go to court and I know that I need to have a PowerPoint, I have it printed, emailed, scanned 5 different ways, and that's just for a simple presentation. I think when you have something important like redundancy and needed for a sewage and water board, you need to have people in place who understand having a plan, making sure it's in effect, and making sure it's being followed.
This buzzer is coming in handy. Y'all are right on time at 1 minute. Mr. Hardy, if elected as a councilman, what would be your action to better oversee the Sewage and Water Board?
I believe that we need to appoint someone as the director of the Sewage and Water Board who has the vision beyond 5 years or 10 years. I believe that we need to look towards the future, maybe 100-year plan or more. And I believe that if you don't have the background in order to fulfill that obligation to the city of New Orleans, then you shouldn't be in that position. I also believe that there should be a lot more data, and perhaps we have to reach out to some of our local engineers in order to achieve that. But in order for us to understand where we're going, we have to understand where we're at. And the city still does not understand where we are, how much damage there is, how much is going to be required in order to move us forward. And we need to make certain that we do that moving forward. So I would develop a feasibility study in order to accomplish that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ring, as you mentioned, you live in Mid-City, a lot of damage in that area. What would you do as an elected council member to make sure that residents and businesses can be made whole?
Well, I would definitely work with the state and the federal authorities to work on a plan to get more money invested in that process. I believe that it was very slow going as far as declaring states of emergencies and various other actions by the mayor. They waited too long. Removing the city, the state oversight of the Sewage and Water Board is the first key in that. We need people on the ground in the city that can make decisions that day, not later on.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ward, does the Sewage and Water Board need more oversight, especially from government, whether it be state or council government?
The Sewage and Water Board simply should not exist. We have over 200 different entities in New Orleans. Independent fiefdoms, mostly appointed, unelected officials, most of them political donors of the mayor that are appointed to different seats and everything, whether it be for parks or sewage and water board or anything else. The fact is, it doesn't take a board, it doesn't take a huge number of people to decide that if a pipe is broken, we need to fix a pipe. If we need to do drainage, we need to do the drainage. And the fact is that even within this issue, we've been taken for a ride because the Sewage and Water Board and the pumps had nothing to do with the flooding last week. The flooding was caused by clogged and paved over catch basins and the continued use of impermeable paving throughout the city by the mayor and city council, so that the water never even got to the pumps for the pumps, whether they were working or not, to pull it out.
Ms. Washington-Kendrick, what can you do if you're elected as a council member for residents who come looking for answers from you as an elected official?
I think everything is about accountability. So if we are transparent with everything we're doing on the board or not on the board, if we do appoint somebody, for as with Mr. Tillman said, we make sure that everybody's held accountable and everybody's transparent in what's going on. Because I feel like we dropped the ball. There was no communication at all.
Quickly, let's talk infrastructure. Streets in Lakeview and parts of Uptown and Gerttown leave something to be desired. Ms. Achikala McLansky, in 30 seconds, we're shortening the time, how do you improve infrastructure in those areas?
I think that we have to look at ourselves in this city as part of a coastal system, and there are opportunities for us to do master planning in the region to address our drainage and streets issues because they're very much intertwined. And I think that we can focus on workforce development inside of our departments.
Thank you very much. Mr. Giarrusso, similar question. In 30 seconds, will roads and potholes be a priority for you if you're elected?
Absolutely. I think the first goal of government is to take care of safety, and that means streets at the very top of the list. Two things I would do is, one, that we have millages and state money that are dedicated to the streets and street maintenance. I absolutely think that money ought to be spent. It hasn't been done in years past. Number two, we have money that is dedicated to other sources that need to be there as well.
I appreciate you all finishing your answers on time, too. Mr. Hardy, same thing. Can roads and potholes in District A be fixed when you're in office?
Yes, they can, but not without the drainage first. I believe that we need to put all of our resources into developing a feasibility study to deeply understand what's happening with our drainage before we address our streets.
Mr. Ring, 30 seconds, same question. Basically, what's your answer as a councilman to fixing potholes across the city, especially in your district?
Well, very quickly, we just really need to work on the structural list of the workers. We have far too many people not doing enough. So we can employ disadvantaged workers and maybe students during the summer to work on some of these places that we can't get to during the regular workday.
Mr. Ward, very similar question. It's been a problem for years in District A. What can you do as a councilman to fix people's potholes that have complained for years and years and years?
Fixing potholes is actually a waste of time, just a political show, because there's no reason to fix a pothole in a road that's a complete piece of junk. Our roads are falling apart because they're incompatible with our soils. We know that, our engineers know that, and we need to quit wasting time with put more asphalt and more concrete and the pothole killer and go with permeable pavers, just like other cities in Europe that have our same type of soil conditions have, and use them there.
Ms. Washington Kendrick, we have a theme here. Same question. Potholes are an issue in District A. What will you do as an elected council person, if elected, to fix those? 30 seconds.
Well, one thing is get more kill trucks. So every district, they only have 2. So if you get 5, 1 for each district, and make sure every day those kill trucks are out there filling potholes.
Final question, as we are running out of time. We're going to start off with you once again, Ms. Achikalan McLansky. What will be your first course of action if elected to represent District A? You have 30 seconds.
I think our most important issue right now is public safety, and we have to take a triaged approach to that. We have to continue bolstering our NOPD, looking at ways to help them work smarter, not harder, do regional coordinated policing. I think we also need to invest in our workforce and economic development, diversify our economy, because when we have good jobs and people are working, they're going to not want to commit crimes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Giarrusso, same question. If you're elected, what is your first course of action?
First course of action is absolutely to address public safety. And I think the way that you can best do that on the council is by serving on the budget committee, which controls the funds where things go. So we want to focus on making sure the police are properly funded. We want to make sure I'm focusing on drainage and streets being properly funded. And we want to make sure that economic development is properly funded as well. When we set our priorities, then you know that you'll be headed in the right direction.
Mr. Hardy, same question. If voters elect you to office, what is your first course of action when you get elected?
Certainly public safety. I believe that we need to fund programs better, like Ceasefire, as well as the Peacekeepers. I believe that we need to do more training with our NOPD. And I also believe we need to focus on our fire department. Our firemen have been cut short of resources oftentimes, and they've been neglected. We need to do that too.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ring. Same question. If you're elected, what do you do day one when you're in office?
Day one, I'd go back out to the communities that I've been walking through every day during my election and find out what we really need to do, what their priority is, and what I can do for them. I'm working for them, so my goal is to work for them. So I'm going to go out there, public safety, sure, schools, all my community initiatives are going to be a priority, but getting with these people and finding out what's going on with them is my main goal.
Mr. Ring, thank you very much. Mr. Ward, same question. If you're elected, what is the first thing you do for voters out there?
Day one, a comprehensive independent third-party inventory and audit of everything in our city, every entity, every office. We need to know where every office, every desk, every car, every paperclip is, and we want to know where every single one of those billions of dollars that have been paid by the taxpayers and gotten from government entities have been misspent or sent. They have not been spent on what they're supposed to be spent on all these years.
Ms. Washington Kendrick, we are going to end with you. If you're elected by the people, what's the first thing you do when you're in office?
I think line by line with the budget. Just comb it out, every piece, every aspect of the budget, and then I will deal with the public safety, because if we don't know where the money is or where it's going, then we can't really do anything. We can keep on talking about it, and reliving it and revisiting, but nothing's been done because we haven't got to the bottom and the core of what's going on.
All right, thank you, and thank all of you for your time here tonight. That's all the time we have for the hot seat. These are your candidates for District A. Next week, District B will have the hot seat discussion there. For now, I'm Travers Mackel. Let's send it back to you.